Hello, everybody, and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog, Arichcomiclife. My name is Richard Gill, and my blog describes over 750 comedians and counting that I've been watching over the last 45 years. My guest today is a brand new comedian. Her name is Stefania Licari. Yes! Hello!
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. I love clapping to myself.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you. Just made my Sunday. I'm so excited, and I'm a little bit nervous actually because you've got such an incredible blog with this incredible list of like A-list comedians. So I'm honored.
Well,
Thank you, Rich.
you're very kind, and thank you very much. The reason why I wanted to speak to you today, to chat to you today, it's all about your time being a stand-up comedian. I wanted to interview you today because I believe you're just starting out on your comic journey, and I know you from the audience of the virtual audience of Always Be Comedy. So either you're laughing or I'm laughing very loudly when we can be heard. So it's wonderful stuff. Can you describe your background and why did you want to become a comedian?
Yes. Wow. So that's actually a really long story. So I mean,
Fire away.
yeah, I mean, to start with, I'm fairly new to the stand-up world, but I'm not new to comedy. So, like, I don't know how far you want to go back, but I always find very interesting that I'm just gonna tell you basically my life of what happened, because some people think, oh, this is quite bizarre, and to me, it's like I haven't done enough. I want to do more. So, because recently I had quite a few interviews because I've been producing some work that has had some exposure. And when people ask me about my background in my life, I always find this should be such an easy question, and it always sends me to total panic. And I mean, I don't know if it happens to you too, but you know, the older and the wiser you get, you look back into your life and you think, every time you tell about your life, there is almost like a different interpretation, like a different judgment or emotion linked. And, you know, my mom always told me, oh, why are you doing this? This is so crazy. You're insane. And I thought, oh, well, she doesn't understand because, you know, different generation. And now I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why have I done this? So, yes, it kind of feels a bit of almost difficult to put down in a linear way. So I'm going to start saying when I was 5.
Right.
When I was 5, I wanted to be an actress. And you see, Rich, it's something like every time I think about it, I got this like really warm and vivid memory of myself. As soon as I learned reading and writing, I would write little story and I would kind of perform. And then, so I have 2 siblings. One is much, much younger. One is only 2 years younger, my brother. And I used to force my brother to perform with me. And this is like, I'm very proud of this because this is like probably the beginning of an entrepreneur mindset. I used to get my parents to watch us and I would force them to pay us to watch our little
Wow.
So these are like my earliest memories. Yeah, the early memories.
Where was this? Where were you born? Was it?
So I'm Italian. So
Italian, right? Okay.
So my early memories of me reading fairy tales, and then there was this like a little production, and like in the primary school, I was playing like a man, and I would say something like, "Oh, hai dato da mangiare alla capra," which literally means, "Have you fed the sheep?" So
right.
I had this really line. But what it was amazing was I was I think like 7 or 8, but something really, I heard the people laughing in this like little primary school production. And I remember feeling, wow, this is incredible. And I don't know whether they were laughing because this was horrible and having a little girl playing and an old man, creepy, was maybe
yeah.
But for me, it was like, oh, wow, they're laughing because I'm good and this is great and I'm telling a story. So
That's
I had
fantastic.
of like desire to be on stage, to have people laughing around me and to tell stories. But, you know, life unfolds sometimes in a different way, and I couldn't go to drama school. And my backup plan was I become a doctor. I went to medicine. And so I graduated as a doctor. I moved to this country, specialized in anesthetics and intensive care. And then it's been a great journey. And sometimes when people say, oh, how can it be so different? You know, like a scientific background and an artistic background. But ultimately, the more I grow into art, the more I discover there's such similarities, because it's all about human stories.
Yeah.
Okay? So many years of medicine, but always in the back of my heart, this passion for art, always going to the theater. And at a certain point, kind of switched. I had a trigger. So I started doing some amateur courses, progressed quite quickly, and my heart was always beating. And the first time I was on stage, I had such an incredible sense of belonging. Then I felt so alive, so present, so back to myself as a child in a way. It was
fantastic.
A moment. So then I decided to take professionally, and I went to drama school, and I trained professionally. Then I trained in comedy. And to do this, I had to leave the medical job. So I've been working kind of freelancing since then. So I've been in acting for 10 years now. And so it has been a very interesting journey. And mainly I specialized in comedy. I went to Paris. I studied with Philippe Gaulier. Did clown, comedy, vaudeville, and a lot of physical comedy. And in this last year, I got into stand-up. I've done some training, been watching a lot, I've been self-teaching in a way, and I performed my first gig literally 10 days ago.
Wow, literally 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Where was that?
So it was an online gig for a show called Big Movie. And it was a stand-up / cabaret. So there was an element, I was kind of in my comedic persona, but play also a character. So it's a very interesting, very long show, like 2 hours.
Yeah, some of them are.
Yeah, I had my first routine like 10 minutes plus, and then in and out. So I felt that the debut was quite of a thing.
And what did you talk about in those 10 minutes? Was it character based? Was it as yourself, or what?
Yes, so it was actually character based, because so in this last year I've been working. I created a web series starting from a doctor character, which is kind of bizarre, very Italian, and I working from home and having online consultation. So I created season 1 of this web series, and I've been so blessed because this work actually had a really good exposure. And, so I presented to some film festivals, and it all started as a thing for myself. Wow. And it became quite big. So I love that character, and I won some awards. I was like, wow.
What's the name of the character? Describe her.
It's called. She's called Dr. Anna La Rosa.
Right.
So she's quite eccentric, and how she works from home, and she loves giving advice. And she's got this like overwhelming mom that keeps calling and trying to be. And so she gives like online consultations, and these poor patients, the actors obviously, genuine questions, but because she lives in her own world, her answers are always a bit inappropriate, bizarre.
I like the sound of her. She sounds great.
I mean, it's been quite a journey, because it all actually, I mean, the drive, I know it's almost like a sensitive topic, you see, Rich, because actually I had many people ask me, oh, how can you do medical comedy during the pandemic?
Of course, yeah.
Right. Well, that's two things. One, I'm in a quite advantageous position, because being also a doctor, I feel it comes from a place of, I have so much respect for the work that my colleagues do, and I do as well. And so I can talk about, nobody can come and tell me, oh, you don't know what they're going through, because I know. And second, I learned in these worst tragedies that we've been exposed, and I've been working in the front line in intensive care, that the biggest life lesson I learned is that humor, comedy, laughter are life saviors.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely, really, I really experienced. I feel like I always knew, but this time I saw it. I saw what it meant for colleagues and nurses to feel better if I made a joke.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. It's like that with me. I find your story fascinating, that you've created this character that you know about, and you've just gone ahead and done it. It's like me with the whole concept of the blog and the online comedy. I am staggered by my success because all I do is sit in an audience and laugh. But if we didn't have online comedy or anything like that, I don't know what I would do, because I'd just be looking at four walls. You know, it's an extraordinary tonic, and it's a very, very positive thing in a very dark time in a lot of people's, well, everybody's life. It's awful time to be in, but to have something like the comedy is just fantastic. I really wish you every success with it, because she sounds hilarious, this character.
thank you. So basically, in this online gig, it was a mixture of prepared routine and improv. So I had the audience ask me questions, and me in the character, I would, so questions such as, what do you think of the vaccine, or what type of masks, or etc. etc. So it was lovely. It was
so you got the audience interaction as well.
Yeah,
That's brilliant. And of course, every time you go on stage and you do the character, it gives you more experience.
Yeah, totally. And it's I mean, the character's not too far away from, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that, but yeah, not too far away from my personality, like bizarre, a bit eccentric, very Italian, but obviously it's an exaggeration, and every time you have a comedic, it's like my comedic persona, but with a character on the top. So there's some element of truth, but for the purpose of almost like a bit of cabaret.
It's interesting because my background is administration, my working background, and I was a civil servant for 17 years, and I now work in a school on a reception, a big secondary school, and I do all the admin there as well. And when I was in the civil service, a very good friend of mine who I'm going to be interviewing on for this blog retired from the civil service and became a stand-up comedian, but he was a character comedian just like you, and he's done a whopping over 900 gigs now as this character. So the sky is your limit.
Thank you. Well, I hope I am. I mean, I like to do some stand-up as my, although it's never really yourself, because it's kind of persona in a way. But I'm loving this character. I also wrote a TV pilot, so I have this dream of getting into a TV series. I strongly believe about this is the time the humanity needs comedy more than ever. And
I totally agree.
That's an interesting angle, because we need to. I believe that with comedy we can really defeat almost the fear of death. Not defeat forever, but even for an hour, and that is so crucial. So I'm so truly, genuinely passionate about it.
Well, I wish you every success with your enthusiasm. It sounds wonderful. When you did your 10 minutes, how did you remember your routine?
That's a great question. I think because I'm a former actress, I don't find it difficult to remember lines, and so that's all right. I mean, I do have lots of, so I had practiced before. Generally, remembering things per se is not an issue, touching wood. But so I have some techniques, some psychological, like I cannot chill myself, because it's quite interesting, right? I don't know if you found this before, Rich, but generally people, like actors, we are always asked this question, like, are you worried about losing your lines? And I was like, oh my God, no, I have to think about other things. I thought about tripping over, breaking my costume, falling over, but forgetting lines isn't one of the problems. Because also, I think generally, ultimately, as an audience, you go in and watch something. And if it's a great performance and it's a great story, I don't think the audience cares.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. As long as you can keep going with it. The reason why I asked the question was, other than the blog, the most creative thing I've ever done is write a play. I wrote a half-hour play.
Oh, wow.
and myself and my mate put it on for Comic Relief, to raise money for Comic Relief, and I wrote it as an Edinburgh show. It's called The Applicant. It's about a bloke who comes down to London from Carlisle. Hello, it's basically based on me, but he applies for a number of jobs and never gets the job. He'll never ever get the job. That's the whole point of the thing. But he's a trier, and he keeps going and tries to get the job.
Oh wow!
So each
watch it somewhere. That sounds so interesting.
Each of the scenes were each of the acts were 2 scenes. So the first scene was me in the waiting room waiting for the job interview to start, and all I had to look at was the audience. So I would start chatting to them nervously and then build up this monologue. And then the second scene was the interview, so the interviews would build, and etc, etc, etc. So we rehearsed this play for 12 weeks, and I had all these great monologues, and of course on the opening night I ran out, and I was the first person on. I was the only person on the stage, and I was like a rabbit in headlights, and I forgot the monologue. I forgot the lines.
Oh my God!
So it's the hardest thing to do, but I managed to save it. But I was terrified, and so I've got the utmost admiration for folk who can go out on the stage and do it. It's extraordinary to watch from the audience. You have to walk out, and whether you're in character or on your own or doing your own show, you have like 1 or 2 minutes to be either completely original or endearing or above all funny to make an audience laugh. And that if that goes well, it's the best feeling in the world. But if it doesn't, you have to go away and think, right, well, I'm gonna build on that. That's not gonna happen again. So with only having done 1 gig for you, the feeling that you've done it must be amazing. That you've got over the hurdle of doing it.
Yeah, definitely. It was very empowering actually, and I got addicted. I remember texting my comedy coach, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is a drug. I'm having withdrawal. I have a headache." As the following day, I'm having headache. I'm obsessed about it. I keep thinking about it. I just can't wait to do it again. So it's a real drug addiction. I was like, "This is access, medically speaking."
That's why I go every night nearly, because you once you've been to one, you cannot get enough of it. And my holidays are spent every year at the Edinburgh Fringe. That is the best experience as well, so you might want to apply for that. And I go for a week to see all the comedians, and I need holiday by the time I come back, because I've seen so many of them. Can you describe more about your writing process? You've said about how this character came along, but what did she actually say the first time that you did it? How did you perceive the character with the audience?
Yeah, well, again, I'm kind of a new writer because I'm a former kind of scripted actress. So for many years I've been performing with scripts that somebody else. So I noticed that my writing process maybe is typical of people that come from the performance background. So there is a lot of like improvising in a way. So it's a kind of, I improvise, something comes to my mind as an image, and then I have to say. So I just say loud, and I start making up the scene, and then I scribble something, and then I improvise again, and then I scribble something. So there's a lot, this devising process, there's a lot of doing, and then doing again. And I guess because I've done a lot of improv as training as well, so it comes reasonably natural.
Right.
I'm not the type of person so far just to sit on a desk and just writing. I have to do it. But again, I guess it comes from my background, so I don't know whether it's going to change. And also, I guess it depends what... I find that I work a lot of images, and I like situational comedies for me. So I'm less like a words-based type of comedy person. Right. I'm more like Asians are bizarre. But I guess that comes also from just my personality, so the way I look at life. So what I'm doing every day is I write at least a joke a day, more or less, or I write a statement or an idea. So I keep basically training my brain to look at life in a different way, which is, where is the story? Or people talking to me and I think, okay, this could be interesting character, but also maybe there is a joke behind, or maybe there is a story. And I find this really fascinating, because in a way, I always done that as an actress. I always looked at people as, oh, their accent is interesting, or what they're wearing. But now I'm also becoming a little bit, I guess, a better listener as well. And I find really fascinating, because I think maybe there is a story. So basically, watch out if you are my friend, because you might become material for
I'm expecting a sketch about me and this blog.
Exactly, there might be an next.
That is a great answer. What is your ambition as a comedian? What would you most like to get out of the experience?
Wow. So again, this is another question that should be straightforward, but it isn't, because that in a way there's like a general ambitions and a specific goals. I mean, general goals, like every actor wants to win a BAFTA and Olivier.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
That is on my list, just to clarify. Casting directors listening to the blog. Yes. But also kind of specifically in the short term, I'm really enjoying stand-up. And the reason I'm enjoying so much is because when they are well done, there is a wit, an intelligence, and a possibility. It's like a great tool. That's why I'm particularly impressed by some of the female comedians, because the tool to express a voice that then sometimes in art with other people's scripts, we don't have a chance to. Because in stand-up, you make your material. And very similar to do your own solo show. So basically, my goal is to get more and more into the stand-up. I just got offered a regular spot on a comedy show, but I can't reveal it.
Wow, congratulations.
Yes. So I'll be working on this, my comedic persona. I'm working on a solo show that is going to be a mixture of storytelling and this stand-up and a bit of character-based. And hopefully my TV pilot will be pitched to Netflix or something. So I would like to star in that, because I feel I go to characters on me. You see, Rich, for me, it's like the drive to do art, and in particular comedy, is tell stories. And there's a power. There's a power in comedy, especially when it comes to basically art in a way is political, and political not in the sense on the sense that we with a negative connotation, political in a very etymological sense, like polis from the Greek language means city. So city structure, people. So it's for people. Art is for people. Is to allow to have their voice and express and get the audience for an hour or 2 hours, be transported and or reflect on, have an impact, or getting to a different world, and normally they wouldn't have. So absolutely adore this, and I just want to have more and more opportunities. And I found comedy is particularly good to tackle issues that are generally treated in a dramatic way, such as immigration or anything to do with also minorities or women's rights.
Yeah.
way more powerful. And I just love that feeling of going on stage and having this game with this complicity with the audience of, well, okay, this is not real, this is not a documentary, this is art, but for this hour we are going to pretend reciprocally that we are in this world and we present you this. And then the power of art, of impacting people's lives, it can be so extraordinary.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. The wonderful thing about comedy is that you can talk about anything you like, and that's how it should be. As long as you've got, as long as you've got some sort of theme to it, I would imagine, then you can expand on that. And if it's told in a positive, enthusiastic, and funny way, you're gonna get audiences listening to you as well. You know, so yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Are you now based in Britain? You say you're from Italy. Are you now in Britain, or are you still in Italy?
Oh yeah, I've been based here for like almost 2 decades.
Right. Okay. So
In London.
so if you've never, if you've only done your online show. Obviously, when things get back to some sort of normality, you would like to do live stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And the next, I suppose, the next thing to do is to. There are a lot of free comedy clubs that you go and you put your name down, or you ring them up and you put your name down and you get up and you do 5 minutes. And I go to a lot of these. There's a one called Birdie's Free Comedy on the Strand, and I've seen a lot of comedians come through there, and I go and I laugh, and they just they stand up, they're in the audience, they stand up and do 5 minutes on the stage and then go and sit back down again, and there's a compare. So that's a very good way of getting in, and of course the more you do, the better you are at it, because it is all experience. So I mean, we're all living in very strange times. It's all horrible at the moment. Are you finding online gigs okay? Because if you haven't done any live ones, this is all you've got. But do you mind talking to a screen? Would you rather have a live audience, or what?
I miss terribly
Yeah, you and me both.
I miss it so badly.
Yeah.
I performed a lot on stage before the lockdown. So again, not as a stand-up, but doing other stuff, even comedy stuff. And so that's a real void at the moment, because there is something about hearing that laughter all together and clear.
Yeah.
And all through the Zoom, then it's just so powerful. I find the laughter is such a bonding between human beings. It's at some point, it's like, maybe it's also wavelengths, maybe it's just also physics, but there's such a unity at that moment. I miss that feeling. I miss that feeling of being physically on stage. But also, I think online is great, because as an artist, I feel I'm forced to adapt myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not to say I prefer the old times. It's not, I don't need to find a hierarchy in my mind. It is what it is. So the empowering question is, how can we make the best thing ever? And there's a lot of online that I'm loving it. I'm loving that you can play with the frame of the Zoom.
Yeah.
Acting is something that I call a hybrid acting. It's not screen acting, it's not theater acting, it's Zoom acting. It's different, it's new. So I feel blessed. I'm going through something new like that, and it's forcing myself to readapt both physically, vocally, the type of content is different. And also just the way you think. If I was on stage, a certain movement on my face would not even be noticed, or that would be too much on the screen, but in Zoom they are okay. So I think it's an interesting discovery. So I'm kind of loving it, actually. I look forward to go back physically on stage, but my mindset is I'm loving what I'm having, and I'm trying to make the best ever, because I'm discovering new things for myself that I would have if I didn't have this opportunity.
It's so good that online comedy is available, it's so great that it is accessible. But for me, you can't beat the live experience of an audience, and you never know what's going to happen and all the rest of it. Having said that, where we go to Always Be Comedy, your your introduction to the comedy through them is extraordinary. They are renowned for being just about the best thing online, because of the fact that they've got this virtual front row, and because the comedians hear the laughter, or they can chat to them or whatever. It's so well done. And you know, do you agree? You've been going to Always Be Comedy for quite a while. I've seen you in the audience enjoying yourself.
Yeah. It's been I'm not even sure when I started many months ago. I learned a lot. It's been like a school in a way.
Well, they've created their own little family, I think, and certainly when the live comedy nights get back, if you've never been to the venue at Kennington, it's fantastic. It's really good. So we look forward to seeing you there. Who are your favourite comedians, past and present?
Oh my God, so many. I'm just gonna mention the ones I've been stalking a little. Not just the one I like. I absolutely adore Ansley B, the Irish comedian. She's
brilliant.
Excellent, and she's a former actress, so you can see also all that acting training with the clarity, her act out, and again, she's very much a situational comedy type, to my understanding, so I connect a lot with that, so I absolutely adore her. I've been loving from the Always Be Comedy, Colin Holt with Anna.
Anna Mann, that character is amazing.
He is so genius, is so witty, and is so sensitive to the audience as well. You can see the artist, the really work. So I really look up at him as a role model.
I like his other characters as well, not just Anna Mann. The other ones are good because they're so different.
Absolutely, and I like Hal Murray a lot. I like Joe Caulfield.
She's an absolute natural.
As Kevin Bridges. I actually saw him at the Tommy Field. That was just before the lockdown.
Oh, right. So you have been to the Tommy Field, right? Yeah.
I was in the front row, obviously.
Yeah.
So
he is brilliant. He's so good. When you said about Aisling B, I first saw her in a tiny little club in London, and she was headlining it. And afterwards, I was there with a friend of mine who was a comedian who was a tryout. And afterwards, we were in the bar, and she came down and she recognised my friend who was the comic, and she bought us all a pint of Guinness. And she and she said to me, she said to me, "That laugh is so infectious." I said, "Well, you were hilarious." So she is and her acting on the television is brilliant as well. That series she did with Sharon Horgan was superb. I think that's coming back, about the two sisters. It's really good. Highly recommended. Like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience?
I do. I take almost as a homework. But the other thing is, I just surround myself with comedy basically on a daily basis. I mean, maybe not 7/7, but like 6/7. I watch comedy online. I watch anything on Netflix I can possibly find. I watch TV series. I got really obsessed with a lot of them recently. And I read about comedy. I watch webinar. And I feel like, you see, Richard, you feel the same, because your enthusiasm for comedy is contagious and it's very obvious. I feel like you have to, and you have to nourish yourself with things you're truly passionate about.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to have a passionate interest other than a routine, I think. And with me, it's this. I was just going to say, I hope you're not going to do a rival blog.
Imagine. If I did, I would call it, so yeah, like Against the Rich blog. Great branding.
Thank you very much.
Very well. Thank you for the inspiration.
You're very kind. Just before we go, is there anything else you would like to say? Is there any, where can people find you on social media? Have you got any more gigs coming up? Have you got any podcasts, anything like that?
Right. So I do have gigs coming up, but I'm going to need to say a later stage because I'm not being a super confident yet.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to be every week for a while. So that's exciting. So my web series is, the season 1 of my web series is on YouTube, and the name is My Doctor's Advice. So there is an entire playlist there.
Right.
From at Licari Stefania, and Twitter at Stefania Licari.
Yeah. So.
And the website as well, stefanialicari.com. So yes, I'm trying to be present on social media. I think it's a great tool to.
It is, yeah. It helps me with this, yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, anything else to say? Well, again, it's been a year of getting the more tragedies I had in life, surrounded in life, and the more I went towards comedy. So for me, comedy has been really a lesson of humanity and my savior, my drive, my fire. Yeah. And I feel blessed. If I have any talent, any skills that I can use to share this comedy passion and to impact people, I think that's my life's mission.
Wow. Well, what a perfect end to a wonderful interview. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. And I wish you every success. I really do. I think you're so enthused for it. Just keep going at it and keep going, and you never know what will happen. I wish you so much success. I really do. And all the very best to you. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.